In this update, we've got multiple short waves coming across the middle of the country. Will set the stage for multiple rounds of severe storms across the central plains. And we do have a stalled frontal boundary that's draped across central Florida. It's actually going to be sitting there for several days, and it might sit there long enough. It may even spin up an area of low pressure off the Florida coast by the time we get into your Thursday time frame. So taking a look at the water vapor imagery this afternoon, there's that instability that came out of the Rockies. Now it's setting up shop across portions of Kansas into Oklahoma and far extreme portions of the Red River. That's where our thing is going to get activated along the dry line here into the heat of the afternoon. We've got a powerful jet streak that's going to be screaming across off the west and draping across the Four Corners regions, really elevating once it gets into portions of the Texas Panhandle, into portions of Oklahoma, and right around the Red River area. I think that's where all three modes of severe storms and mainly a big time hell producer supercells that could unfold into the heat of the afternoon. Likely after 5 o'clock this afternoon, we could be seeing some isolated supercells start to originate within the Oklahoma City area, within portions of the Wichita Falls region into West Texas. And those are going to be moving east southeast bound, likely going to be transferring into a damaging wind threat. But yeah, you can't rule out an isolated spin up tornado out of this action. I think the main time frame really unfolds after 5, but then the peak around 9-12 o'clock this evening, and then it should start to subside, transferring to more of a damaging wind threat into the overnight hours. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel, and I would love to reach 200,000 subscribers by the end of the month, and you can help me get there by subscribing to the channel and following all my daily forecasts. So let's take a look at the setup, because this is what a radar depiction may look like around 7 o'clock this evening. You can see these little isolated supercells. That's what makes them intense. Each one of these could be some large hail producers, some get golf ball size, maybe even up to tennis ball size within the atmosphere. That's what some of the atmosphere is calling for, that could max out this evening. So that's the significant threat, is a significant hail threat within these supercells. And then as they dive east southeastward into the later evening time frame, into the overnight, they'll be transferring to more of a damaging wind threat, and then have those downburst, microburst type winds, and then it'll just be an all gusty wind threat into the overnight hours as you get closer into the Dallas-Fort Worth region. But we're going to have multiple short waves kind of really all week long for your work week coming across. There's the one on Wednesday, so you're going to have more of an overnight threat across this region. You'll have another piece coming in out of California into Nevada, and then you have another piece of energy swinging into the Pacific Northwest. That'll be swinging across our northern tier and eventually setting up over the Dakotas with their own severe storms as well. So here's the setup for Wednesday. And this is mainly going to be an overnight. It's the stuff that comes tonight and then last through the morning time frame. You still could have a marginal risk. This is mainly going to be a wind threat with those collapsing thunderstorms. But nonetheless, these areas need to secure loose objects now, getting ready for those two events into Tulsa, into Oklahoma. I would say far northwest portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the Wichita Falls region, especially along the Red River, getting into Lawton, Oklahoma, Ardmore. Those areas are a little bit more susceptible. And once this moves out into East Texas, you're going to have a strong capping inversion come in on the other side. So this is mainly an overnight, maybe early morning event, but then once we hit in the afternoon on Wednesday, strong cap moves in, shuts everything down, and really starts to heat back up again. So here's the concern on Thursday. So here's the setup, and there's that stalled frontal boundary that's going to be draped across Florida. It doesn't make it to Miami, but it's going to be there long enough. And anytime you have a stalled frontal boundary draped across warm waters and peak, hurricane season, that spells trouble, folks. And we could kind of spin up a little low pressure. It's going to be non-tropical at first, but it could take on some form of subtropical characteristics, as this all likelihood is going to be moving northbound. We got a strong dominant ridge that's going to be highlighted over portions of New England. And then at the same time, we've got that other system that was over the the Pacific Northwest. Now it's going to be setting up across the Dakotas, and they're going to have their own round of strong to severe thunderstorms and some very heavy rain across portions of North Dakota into South Dakota. But there's the setup from the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. It does highlight that 30% probability of that low pressure forming right off the Florida coast here. It's going to start off as a non-tropical low, but as it gets its act together and as it spins up, it might take on some sort of subtropical characteristics by the time we head into this weekend. And there's a lot of model guidances hinting at that and deepening this low into a possible, a tropical storm. And maybe even at this time, maybe we can't even roll out a low-end hurricane. But we got 2 days, folks. Looks like it forms on Thursday, and it looks like it may try to get closer to the coast by the time we head into Saturday afternoon. So whatever happens with this system, it's going to be over a 48-hour to 60-hour time span. Nigel's not much to be concerned about, but this is later on down the road. This is probably Ophelia. That's the next in line. This is a 70%, but we have plenty of time to track this particular feature. But here's the setup for going into kind of where your moisture is by the time we head into Friday. So this low that just originates on Thursday could deepen down to 1,000 millibar right off the coast of South Carolina. And you can see it's mainly right side loaded. And on the back side, it's got a lot of dry air. So right now, all your instability is draped across that frontal boundary into central and southern Florida. But once that low develops, it's going to pull all the moisture with it, and then dry air comes out on the backside. So your Florida is not going to be hit from this tropical type system. What's going to be activated is across the Carolinas, especially into North Carolina. Jacksonville looks like a likely target right now, but regardless of the target where it might come inland, we're going to have very heavy rain that's going to be squeezed across the East Coast and some high winds, and this will be likely impacting all the I-95 corridor and eventually heading up into Maine by the time we head into Sunday. So there's the other setup that's coming across the Great Plains. We have the setup for the Dakotas, and then more energy that will be coming across the middle of the country. And we could have another renewed threat of severe storms really highlighted over Kansas, over Nebraska. These regions going to be on the high alert for rounds of severe storms heading into your Friday. So areas into Sioux Falls, into eastern portions of Nebraska, getting into the Topeka region. This is now just coming together, but I wouldn't be surprised this actually goes enhanced by the time we get to that Friday time frame, as we'll have a multiple day, because it's not just what happens on Friday. There's actually more stuff that comes on Saturday. But then all eyes will be off the East Coast, right? So here's the latest icon guidance. We got multiple models showing, hey, this is going to be, something to keep an eye on, and looks like it could be taking on some sort of subtropical characteristics. This is Saturday morning, could be possibly down to a 999 millibar low pressure, very, high winds, wind gust into the Jacksonville region, right off the coastline, into Virginia Beach. Those areas got to be on high alert from this system, and then that will be lifting up into Jersey and into portions of Connecticut and to Massachusetts, and then eventually I think heading towards all the way to New England. But the heat is going to be crazy. I mean, this is going to be the first day of fall coming up on Saturday officially. It ain't gonna feel like anything but fall. I mean, the ridge comes back with a vengeance. You got back into the 90s. You could be looking at the upper 90s. I mean, some hundreds showing up on the map. Texas just can't get rid of this ridge of high pressure, and it looks to be feeling like every bit of not fall, more like summer. Down there, down in the Lone Star State, and those 90s start to creep back up into Oklahoma. These areas were just in the 60s for highs. I mean, the 76 just the end of the day. So this is going to be a rapid turnaround. Those areas that hit 94, 95 yesterday. So it's a slow, you're going to be creeping up all the way into the first day of fall, as those well above average temperatures are really going to be unfolding across the southern plains. And there's the low pressure by the time we head into your Saturday afternoon. It's going to be traversing up the coastline. So places into Delaware, into Jersey, up here into Maryland, could hit with some very heavy rain, some gusty winds with this particular system, as this looks to be coming up the eastern shore, up the I-95 corridor. And there's the setup for Saturday. So we're going to have multiple days. And even, this far out, the Storm Prediction Center already has a slight risk for a severe storm. So we're getting into that second season, right? We're getting into the, more active time frame. You always look for, September, after September 15th, things start to get a little bit more active because you got little cold air, cooler air intrusions coming in from the north. And obviously you got plenty of heat from the south, and that's that squeeze play in the middle. And that's what's going to activate thunderstorms. And these also could be all three modes of severe storms as we head into your Saturday afternoon along a little bit of a cool front. But that cool front ain't going to cool things down at not much of anything. It's mainly a wind shift. So here's the winds expected this week. I mean, some of these winds could 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. But then that's just outside of the thunderstorms. Inside of a supercell, obviously, if they turn severe, they'd be 60 miles an hour or higher. But there's the high wind. So the placement is, the higher winds are just offshore. So we'll have to watch the exact movement because right now, remember, it hasn't even formed yet. So there is no low pressure. There is not one. It really doesn't form until Thursday. But once it does, it really spins up quickly. So you got about 2 days to watch this system, watch this area. But yes, right now, it looks like from the Carolinas all the way up to, Virginia Beach, likely going to have to be on high alert and making main impact from this system. But the impact goes well inland, mainly right side loaded with this system. Remember, dry air on the backside. So if you're left of this area, you're not going to get much of anything. You got to get a lot of dry air and very nice weather. So all the instability is likely going to be right side loaded with this system, but there's plenty of heat. I mean, the heat does not stop. It continues into next week. So much of the country, the middle of the country, continue to be on the well above average side as again, it's not going to be feeling much like fall around here, even into next week. And there's the setup for Sunday. You got all the moisture that's going to be now highlighted over Virginia, over Delaware, Maryland, getting into DC, into Jersey, up the Long Island area. Getting into, Massachusetts and Connecticut and Vermont, New Hampshire, and then really impacting Maine. I mean, Maine just can't take a break. They seem like to begin hit with everything lately in some form of fashion. But here's the rain, over the next 7 days. So pretty dry conditions across the desert Southwest. You do have that one storm system up to the north. You're going to have some elevated rains coming back in the picture for the Pacific Northwest. You're about to hit your wetter season. So I think things start to turn around for you and you're going to be starting to be on the wetter side. But then there's the northern branch that comes across with these short waves. The heavy rains pull through Montana, the Dakotas where they have severe storms. And this is the area that could have multiple rounds of severe storms. And then if you add all that up, yeah, that's 6 to 8 inches of rain highlighted over eastern portions of Oklahoma. So they could be looking at some flooding concerns after it's all said and done. And then there's the stalled front across Florida and then up the coastline. So yes, if this moves anywhere 50 miles, 75 miles, instead of 2 to 4 inches, you're looking at 6 to 8 inches. So big difference on the actual placement of this particular subtropical type feature that looks to form. But heading in the next week, I mean, the heat does not go anywhere. For much of the country, you're likely going to be well above average. And there's that trough coming in off the Pacific Northwest. That is going to be probably the start of the kind of the more or less rainy season coming back into play for you guys up there, because that's what the ensembles look like as we go into the end of September. Has the rains coming back in the picture for off the western coastlines of Washington and Oregon back into Portland region and the northern California region. While much of the country is under that ridge, you're pretty dry, but then the instability is, of course, where that low pressure is, and then just kind of hanging around across portions into the Northeast. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you watch my winter forecast after this video to talk about what's coming, because it definitely looks like to be a memorable winter ahead. We'll have to a lot to talk about. And make sure you subscribe to this channel. I do daily updates, and we'll be keeping you well ahead of the storm. So catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.